This week on Queen's Conversations, join your hosts Lucia Dragos, Noran Omar, and me, John Collins, as we talk with New York Assembly member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas from District 34. She's a co-sponsor of the HALT bill, which stands for Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement. Here's this week's Queen's Conversations.
Welcome to Queen's Conversations. Today we're talking about HALT, the Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement Act.
A bill that passed both houses and is awaiting Governor Cuomo's decision.
We have with us today, we're fortunate to have her, Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas from Assembly District 34. How are you today, Assemblymember?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Could you explain to us what the important facets of this bill are?
Well, the most important thing to know is that the practice of solitary confinement is actually considered torture by the United Nations. So solitary confinement is pulling someone out of the prison population and segregating them from the rest of the prison community and putting them in a space that's approximately the size of an elevator for up to 23 hours on end without any other human contact. So that practice has been deemed torture by the United Nations. And quite frankly, the HALT Solitary Confinement Act hasn't totally eliminated the process. I would actually love to see the practice eliminated, but it has reduced the time by which someone could be held in solitary confinement for 15 days. And this is so important because there's so many stories about people who have really suffered their mental wellness from being put in solitary confinement. It's not a practice that helps rehabilitate someone. It actually harms them further. Khalif Browder is someone who is a young person who was charged with stealing a backpack, put into solitary confinement for years on end, ended up coming out because he was innocent, and then killed himself because of the mental degradation he experienced while being in solitary confinement. So I consider it torture. It's considered by the United Nations as torture. And I was so proud to vote on a bill that significantly reduced the amount of time someone could be held in solitary.
So it's employed as a punishment, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and okay. Is there any proof that this sort of rehabilitates people in any way or changes their behavior?
Absolutely not. And in fact, sometimes it's punishment if the person who's incarcerated, has a fight with a prison guard or another incarcerated person. They tend to be put in solitary. But sometimes people are put in solitary for reasons to what is deemed to protect themselves. So when I spoke on the floor of the State Assembly in support of this bill, I got the story of a woman who was pregnant and was put into solitary confinement, and the stress of solitary confinement actually had her go into labor at 5 months, which was, tragic. She was carrying twins, and she went to labor and gave birth to 2 babies, Jacinta Rain and Julius Kingston. And Jacinta Rain was only 9 ounces. Not 9 pounds, 9 ounces, and lived for 22 minutes and died on her chest because, the stress of the conditions that she was birthed under was too much. So, this has real harms and has actually taken the lives of so many.
Who has the power to put somebody into solitary confinement? How is that decision made? Are you knowledgeable about that?
I believe it's the correction officers in the prisons and jails. And I imagine the superintendents have to sort of be aware that that's happening. One of the first acts I did as a state assembly member is visit a prison. We have the right to visit a prison unannounced. And I went with 2 other colleagues to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which is a maximum security prison for women. And it was important for me as a woman and a gender justice advocate to actually go to a women's prison. And we were there for 5 hours, and we asked to go to the solitary unit and speak with folks in solitary. It was very difficult because to pull them out of solitary, they would be forced to be shackled by their hands and feet and then sit in a chair by which they were shackled to the chair. So we didn't want to put someone through that, but we were able to talk to someone through the little window. But we asked the correction officer to put us in a solitary unit so that we can feel what these folks feel on, we felt momentarily, right? Just for a few moments, we were in that solitary unit. We asked them to lock the door. It felt, the enclosure was so small, the space was so small. I'm a short person, I could barely open my arms, to full length. And, we experienced that feeling for just a few moments, where people who have been put in solitary have been put there for hours and days and weeks and months and even years on end. So it was important for us to be there, experience it, talk to corrections officer, talk to people who were incarcerated, get their stories, because it actually motivated me to fight for this even more.
I had a chance to speak with Natasha White, who is HALT community organizer and also directly impacted survivor of solitary. So let's have a look, and then we'll be back with Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
So I had gotten into a physical altercation in my house with my significant other at the time. And my organization, which was the Close Rikers Campaign, Just Leadership, we were going to Albany to lobby, and HALT was there. So they were looking for people in my organization who had solitary confinement experience, when it dawned on me that not only have I been in solitary confinement, but my husband at the time was in solitary confinement for 12 years. And a lot of the issues and a lot of the behavior, a lot of the frustration, the aggression, the violence that he displayed was definitely a reaction from being locked in that long. Like the smallest things, he was through the roof with it. There is no way you can tell me that locking somebody in a room for days and days and decades with no treatment, with no therapy, is going to cure something. What is that going to fix? It just makes it worse, because now you're giving them mental issues, emotional issues. Who do you think they have to talk to while they're in there? You start talking to yourself. After a while, you start thinking that's normal. You're counting the bricks on the wall, mutilating yourself just to get to the doctor. I know people who have rubbed their knuckles raw just so their hands would bleed, so that they would have to take them to the clinic so you can see somebody else. It's inhumane and it's torture. There are instances where, as in my husband's case, he went in as a known gang member. He was 17 years old though. And because he was a gang member, they never even put him in population. They put him straight in solitary. So for 12 years, he was fighting to get out. He had never even done anything inside of the jail yet to get there. So it was like a preventative measure. There are some people that go to prison and never get out, but the majority of the people that go to prison end up coming home one day. And now this person who has, on top of the issues that they already had, because I don't believe that anybody just commits crimes because they think it's normal. I think certain people are a product of their environment. They have to survive some form of way. And if you have to live like that, you already have trauma. So now you go to prison and you get more trauma. And then you come home and now you interact with the people who have been here and don't know your experiences. They don't know the environment that you just came from. So they interact with you on a normal level when you have not been able to mature normally because of the confinement of prison itself. So prison inside of prison is like it's like you press stop on somebody's growth. So now they come out, and this is the person that lives next door to you, that's in the apartment next door having nightmares, in the apartment next door paranoid, in the apartment next door possibly with severe mental illness that nobody sees because they're not wearing it outside. These are people you're going to interact with. A family member maybe dating somebody who was in prison before. And if that person was in solitary confinement, the chances of them being mentally ill is big. Men's prison is rougher, it's more violent, but as far as support goes, they have more support than us. Most women go to prison, their husband is not sticking around. Their mothers and fathers can't really support them because now you're taking care of my kids. You know what I mean? When a man goes to jail, I know men that have gotten married in jail that through somebody they met in a letter. Women coming to the prison to visit them, multiple different women on multiple different days. Women don't have it like that. We don't have a lineup of men ready to come visit us, ready to marry us and take care of our kids for us. We don't have that. So you're lucky if you have one or two parents or a sister that's coming to visit you once a month. Then there's also there's 3 women prisons. So if you're far, far away, I never got a visit in prison. Never.
And what about the solitary confinement in women's prison?
Solitary confinement in women's prison is even worse because we don't have nobody checking for us. So I know a girl, she was sleeping with one of the officers, and when she got pregnant, they put her in solitary to hide it, and they claim she hung herself. She didn't hang herself. She was on her way home because nobody sees what goes on once you're in there. Nobody can hear it. And the women's prisons, the women's facilities are fairly new. So even the cells are built differently. So the solitary confinement in women's prison is noise proof. So you can't, if you're outside, you don't hear what's going on inside.
Why are they soundproof?
Because I don't know if there is a tape that plays the sound. Somebody recorded, in my organization recorded how an hour sounds in solitary confinement. All you hear is screaming, banging. It sounds like it's just a sound that you can't get out of your head because people are trying to communicate and bring out their frustration any way they can. So it's a constant 24 hours. Whoever's not doing it right now is sleeping. And then when they finish and whoever was sleeping wakes up, they start. So it's like a constant banging and a constant screaming. So I guess they did that so they don't have to hear it.
I know with the Holt bill now, still the solitary confinement, it's not going to be eliminated. It's going to be probably 15 days at the max, which is still so much better.
We're not finished. This is the beginning. So, okay, you're giving us 15 days? Okay, we'll take your 15 days right now. 15 is better than what we have. Until there's 0, we're going to keep going. Because there is no justice and no rehabilitation going on in these New York State prisons. And then we're coming to other states with it. We're going to come across America and make us free like we're supposed to be. This is supposed to be the best country in the world. This country has the highest prison population, the highest homeless population.
What happens if Governor Cuomo doesn't sign it? Is this still going to be in act? Like, what is the process that's going to happen?
Well, the great thing is that we passed the bill overwhelmingly, and we have a veto-proof majority. So if we have to go to the veto override the veto, then we can do that. Hopefully, it won't go to that. We heard the governor plans to sign it by the end of this month. But we're certainly keeping the pressure on because it's just simply the right thing to do.
And is there anything that people can do to help that process?
Absolutely. They can call the governor's office. They can, tweet at the governor. I think the more pressure that we put on the governor to ensure that he signs the bill, the better. After it was passed, there was a celebration actually outside the governor's office in Manhattan. There was music and drums and singing and dancing. And, for once we had a celebration of something that was really positive. We had family members of Khalif Browder there. We had family members of people who have been formerly incarcerated. We had, loved ones and advocates and children, right? It was exciting because in a time like this, we do need to celebrate these wins. But part of the call to action was sign the bill. We need you to sign the bill. So it was also a moment to be outside the governor's office and demand that he sign the bill and do the right thing.
Is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I think I want to add that this is a first step. There's a lot more criminal justice policies that need to be advanced. We still have elders dying in prisons and jails. COVID is still rampant because there's such enclosed spaces. We need to have a parole system that is fair and timely. So there are a number of criminal justice bills that I've also co-sponsored and want to continue to push for, because we really need to address the ways in which we're addressing the criminal justice practices in New York State, and keeping our elders who have served over 15 years, but yet don't have a parole opportunity in sight. They need to be given that opportunity. There's so many elders who are in prison who have changed their lives around, who have gotten degrees, who have mentored others, who have felt real remorse for their crimes. And no one should be held to the standard of the lowest part of their life. And if we see folks really turn their life around, in a system that doesn't support it, right? As we mentioned, the system is not really rehabilitative. It's something that has continued to cause harm. But those who have, been able to still persist and still learn and still, do good, deserves an opportunity to be considered for parole. So the Elder Parole Act is something we're fighting for, and fair and timely parole that would, again, really reassess the ways that folks are up for opportunities to show the good work that they've done, show the changes that they've made in their lives, and their ability to actually come out and be, productive folks in their communities and be with their families.
Who are your co-sponsors? You're getting a lot of support for this bill. Is it cross-party lines, or has it become a political issue in any way?
The halt solitary confinement bill?
Yes.
That was, I wasn't the main sponsor. I was a co-sponsor. Right. The main sponsor actually is my neighbor in the state assembly, Assembly Member Jeff Aubrey, who's been there a very long time, but he's been a vocal advocate for criminal justice. He's really led on so many important issues like the Rockefeller drug laws. And he's been fighting for the Halt Solitary Confinement Act for 17 years. So it was actually quite inspirational to support him and be a co-sponsor. And being co-sponsor says, hey, Assemblymember Aubrey, I like that bill. I like that idea. Let me show support. So that's what it means to co-sponsor. But he was really the leader, and it's important to elevate that leadership because, when these things aren't popular, he stood up for justice, and we want to show support. So we sign our name to the bill, and we support it. And to watch him debate that bill and fight for that bill when it came up for a vote was really empowering. And I made sure I stood up and shared words, and I shared the story of the young woman who lost her baby in solitary, because I felt it was important to articulate and support that fight.
And you had support across party lines.
Yes, I believe so. We ended up getting 101 votes for the bill.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
How one starts a bill for young people that want to be in politics? How do you start?
So actually, a lot of bills don't come from legislators. They come from communities and advocates. So, and that's something that's really important to me as a advocate. If there's an issue in the community that feels unjust and someone's experiencing it and they want to see a change, they can go to their elected official and say, I have experienced this challenge, it shouldn't have to be this way. I had to deal with the state level. What's important to know, whether it's a state bill or a city council bill or a federal bill. So sometimes there's like confusion where the issue should lie, but coming to folks like me and saying that these are issues that I'm dealing with, I could say, well, I could, introduce a bill addressing that. And I would take the kind of concept and take it to the state assembly. And there's a whole team of folks that actually write the bills. And we negotiate to make sure it's reflective of what I want to accomplish. And then I introduce it. It's a whole sort of internal assembly process, but I get it introduced. It gets assigned a committee. There's all sorts of committees. I'm on the committee on environmental conservation and the committee on cities and children and families and social services. So it'll go through a committee, and then the committee passes it through, and then it gets to the floor, and we'll be able to vote on it or not. Not every bill gets on the floor, right? Things get stuck in committees, and but essentially that's the process. But it actually begins with an idea, and often a problem that there's a solution for that oftentimes people in the communities experience themselves. So I think that's something I really want to highlight, that anyone can be, an advocate and be a kind of part of the solution. So I want to make sure folks know that.
There isn't like an age limit, or anyone that's part of a community that is facing a challenge can come to you, or does it have to be a certain age or a certain type of community?
No, it's so important that actually young people know that they have a voice. And the work I used to do prior to running for office was around building consciousness around your power, right? And what's important to know is that age is not a barrier. The language you speak is not a barrier. Your immigration status, or whether you're a voter or not, shouldn't be a barrier, right? Everyone lives in a community, and everyone is experiencing government in different ways. And it's important to hear from those people who are most impacted by the policies we pass, whether they're a 15-year-old or a 85-year-old undocumented abuela, right? So I think for me, at least for me, it's important to hear from everyone in the community, and especially when there's ideas, because, I operate in a certain lived experience, and when I have folks that have different lived experiences share their voice and their ideas, it actually brings new light. That's why diversity is so important, because if you operate in a space where you're only with people like you don't hear about challenges and opportunities. But when you surround yourself by people with diverse experiences, whether it's age or language or culture, it becomes a more rich way in which we can make sure we have a state that works for everybody.
Thank you so much for your time. That's it for today's show. We'll see you next time on Police Conversations.
Start like in 2014 when the medallion price dropped down. So we're talking about, we struggle like almost 6 years now. The city, they let the medallion going up to high price, and in the meantime they'll go around and they let Uber and Lyft to share us this business. In 2002 it was $200,000, and now the medallion they keep the medallion going up till $1.25 million. And right now the price of the medallion, the cash price, about $60,000.
Wow.
They drop, dramatic drop is really is unbelievable. So in the beginning we depended this generate income, and a lot of people buy houses, a lot of people, they educate the family. It was really, we're getting very good income. But what going on, the situation is very hard. A lot of people get suicide now. A lot of people go for bankruptcy. Some people, like me in my case, I storage the medallion and I'm waiting. I can't do anything. Even the bank, they try to request his money, I can't. So it's really, the situation is very hard and tough. If we take it like category, yeah, the people maybe in 30, in 20, they can recover. But people in our case, me and my friend Shadley, I believe over 60, and me over 60. And right now, Well, we don't have time to recover this injury. It's very hard. So how we can survive?
I did buy my medallion 2004, was around 290 from the auction. You're gonna have good income, and the medallion going up until, you know, the story he mentioned, Mr. Gamal, 2014. From this medallion, I'm making my income. I have my child. I'm struggling my life to take care of my child. I leave this medallion. All was my thought, my child. I mean, the medallion is gonna go for my child and my family. I'm right now, I'm 65. I did buy the house for my family, not for myself. The bank of the Medallion Bank, they asked me 2018 to sign a lien in the house, or they take the medallion. I asked them to take the medallion. I cannot let you sign lien in the house for my family. I mean, it's little house. I'm struggling myself. I used to work for 12 hours and sometimes 14 hours to kill myself. I mean, the time is, 2014. I used to have driver, and since Uber came in, most of the driver ran away and they went to drive for Uber. So I drive by myself, and I have to live with my family when I'm working 14 hours and I come home. I used to sleep in the airport. I mean, I was struggling a lot, only for my family. I'm now over 65, and I struggle. And after they took my medallion, I had a lot of stress. My blood pressure goes up. I had accident with the car, 2018, almost killing myself. I was nursing home for almost 4 months. I had 2 surgery in my leg. I'm disability right now. I'm just getting disability and working comp. I'm almost, lost everything. I mean, it's not easy situation for someone over 60, until 65.
We come in, we serve community, almost one like Shadley, one like me. We've been in this country serving the community more than 30 years. We serve and we are slave in the community. We take the people from A to Z. And this is the way you pay us after we're getting over 60 years old?
I mean, most of the time, I went outside, I stay in my car, I keep crying. It's not that easy for a man to cry. I mean, I'm struggling until now. I was thinking to kill myself.